Hello and thank you for joining me. This is foodoffensive.com's weekly video broadcast where I come at you from the front lines of our food supply and bring you news and various articles and also special reports, mainly focusing on the special reports surrounding certain food topics. We ended a long series on GMOs, and of course that's a never-ending battle, and I'm never be done reporting on those issues concerning GMOs, and it all comes back to that, in my opinion. And now I wanted to move on. Last week we moved on to a new series of special reports on high fructose corn syrup, and this week I'm continuing that. This is part 2. I'm going to keep it into 3 or 4 parts, and this is part 2, and really getting into the how it's made and why, I guess you could call this episode. And really not going too far into the history, but we're going to look at also a clip of how it's made, or them attempting to figure out how it's made. And starting out here, of course, like I said, you can't get away from the GMO issue of GMO. And when you look at, there's an article, the Organic and Non-Organic reports on this. Many non-GM alternatives to high fructose corn syrup are available. I wanted to look at this just because this one little quote here that they make. It says, due to their low cost and availability, corn syrup and high fructose corn syrup are the most widely used sweeteners in food products. Corn sweeteners, which cost less than sugar, account for more than 55% of the U.S. sweetener market. However, the majority of corn sweeteners are made from unsegregated corn that includes GM varieties. See, that's one of my issues. You'll see as I get deeper into this a little bit more, maybe in the next episode, when I talk about the different sugars, glucose and fructose. And there are many studies that kind of relate the sugar to high fructose corn syrup. There's people on both sides of the table. Some say that they affect you the same. Others say that high fructose corn syrup, of course, is the cause of diabetes, and it's worse than sugar. And I kind of lean to the side that there's no doubt that obesity has gone off the charts since high fructose corn syrup has been introduced, but at the same time we just intake more sugar in general, so it is very hard to do that. But we're going to look at a study next week that actually from a prestigious university that actually points out the fact that high fructose corn syrup is quite very well could be the culprit. But no matter which side of that you're on, if you believe in the fact that GMOs are horrible for us, and if you've seen my other special reports, I would hope that you could come to that conclusion and see that the fact that the GMO corn is used to make the corn syrup, that's a problem too. Despite the health effects of sugar intake, and like I said, this show's not really about intake of too much fat or carbs or sugars. It's the fact that what's the integrity of the ingredient that's being used in the first place. It all starts there, in my opinion. Now, GMO Watch just tracks various GMOs and things like that, but it says also, although high fructose corn syrup is not a GMO product per se, so much high fructose corn syrup is made using GM corn, we think its inclusion into these pages is justified. And it goes down, it talks about the production of high fructose corn syrup, how it was developed by Japanese researchers in the 1970s, and it's been highly and rapidly introduced in many processed foods and soda drinks in the U.S. over the period of about 1975 to 1985, and it just continues to increase its usage. And I will challenge you to go out and find soda that doesn't have it in there, and I would say you stick to that if you're going to drink soda at all. I've had to all but give up soda, and that's hard for me to do, but I just can't get around. The more I study this, the wilder I get about what I can eat. It's just hard to find anything that I feel safe eating and morally responsible for eating it, and so on and so forth, and more so feeding it to my family and young daughter. So now there's a quite a long study by the Department of Biology, College of Science and Technology from North Carolina Central University, and I'm going to get into a lot of this article next, and this study a lot next week in the next update, the part 3 of the high fructose corn syrup special reports. But this first paragraph here I wanted to point out, it really kind of gives an overall summary of how it's made. And I guess I'm just going to show it on the screen here. I'm just going to kind of pick out parts. I'm not going to get into it too deep. I want to get the whole article title in there. If you're watching this, you can see the full screen of it here. But it says, high fructose corn syrup, also called HFCS, is a liquid alternative sweetener to sucrose that is made from corn, the king of crops, using chemicals, which it says there, caustic soda, hydrochloric acid, and enzymes to hydrolyze cornstarch to corn syrup, containing mostly glucose, and a third enzyme to isomerize glucose in corn syrup to fructose to yield high fructose corn syrup products classified according to their fructose content. And it kind of goes on from there, looking at the names. And it's become a major sweetener in soft drinks, yogurts, breads, and its acidity, relative cheapness, its solubility, so on and so forth, it's becoming more and more used. I mean, when it comes down to it, the bottom line for a lot of these companies are cost, and so they're going to choose whatever is the cheapest way to go. Now we've seen coming back, like Pepsi, for instance, is doing the throwback sodas where they have the Mountain Dew and the Pepsi, and it's in the kind of the classic logos and the classic packaging, and it's called throwback, and they use the real sugar in there, and so that's a lot better alternative. And I've tasted those, and they really taste about the same. I mean, I would say that the high fructose corn syrup version is a lot sweeter, but you can feel a lot better about yourself drinking that. Now, that doesn't take away the fact about the Mountain Dew that it could dissolve a mouse, and you've seen that if you've watched my videos and been following the videos. The amount of sugar in it, I don't think really affects whether it can dissolve a mouse or not. It's going to do that no matter what, so you got to be careful with that aspect of it. That's a whole nother topic. But basically, there's been a great concern in the U.S., this article goes on to say, or this study, it says the increase in its consumption in the U.S. has coincided with the increase in incidence of obesity, diabetes, and other cardiovascular diseases and metabolic syndromes. And this study examines literature on the production and properties of high fructose corn syrup and the possible health concerns. And we're going to get into that article, like I said, next week. But before going on here, this is going to talk about the production, maybe the how a little bit, but we're going to look at the production of high fructose corn syrup. This documentary that I'm going to show here, just some edits from that clip, from some clips and edits from that documentary. It's called King Corn. If you've seen it, you can see it online. If you have Netflix, you can watch that online. And I saw that, and I've used it in other videos I have, and other clips and other parts of the movie when talking about the GMO issue. But these guys, they're out there, and I'm not going to describe the basis of the movie, but basically it shows the guy trying to figure out how they make high fructose corn syrup, and he gets turned down for all these tours of the buildings. They don't let them tour the buildings, but they do talk to the lady from the Corn Refiners Association. But here's that clip right now. Take a look at that, and we'll come back in a second.
I was wondering if it might be possible to visit a corn syrup factory sometime.
Visit in what sense?
Heard starting back sooner, been in and out of the office.
On camera, off camera?
On camera.
We don't allow cameras into the plants.
Oh yeah, look at that.
There
real reason for the security of these plants and food processing facilities is as much about the security of the food that's being created as it is your personal safety.
I was wondering whether it's possible to make high-fructose corn syrup in my home.
Well, what, 15.5% dry moisture, how efficient your separations are. Make it acidic, separate it in the wet milling process. 1% divided by 50, leave it there for a while, counterflow water wash on it. Once you pour off all that crap that you're going to have to do in the bottom, you're going to have to add water in, yeah.
Okay, thanks so much. Take care. Bye. Oh my goodness, that's a marathon. All right, so step one apparently is soaking this corn in water that has been heated to 140 degrees. And we're also supposed to put in sulfuric acid at 200 parts per million, which is a tiny parts per gallon.
0.0007.
So 7 it's not even close to a teaspoon. It's like you're gonna stick your finger in and whatever drops sticks to it.
No, man. I'm not gonna do it. I'm not gonna do that.
It's so much easier.
What we're looking for is yellow dent number 2. So it's already a certain type of corn that will yield a lot of starch.
So this is going to soak for 16 hours to get it soft and begin to separate the starch from the fiber. All right, day 2.
It smells sweet.
What does something sweet smell like? Sugar?
Yes.
There's a lot of technology, quote unquote, that goes into making corn sweetener.
All right, step 2. Physically damage the corn.
It doesn't look like a kernel anymore at the end of the process, but that is part of that innovative system.
The endoamylase and spezyme prime enzyme randomly hydrolases alpha-1,4 glucosidic bonds to reduce the viscosity of a gelatinized starch.
Everything really is a science when you boil it down.
Wow. That's pretty sweet. It's sweet.
It tastes good.
And so there you go. I mean, of course, everybody's got their own view of it. Of course, you saw the process for making it. It's quite involved. And of course, making it in your home isn't quite like the industrialized version of it that's very highly, highly processed. And I believe that there's a reason why you can't tour the way that the tour of the factories is. They say, oh, it's a safety issue. Of course, I'm sure it's a safety issue, but I can go tour the Coors Brewery down the street on the other side of town there and have no problem with it. But I think there's a reason beyond the safety thing. They don't want to see that it's not safe for you, possibly. But I want to move on here, and like I said, it depends on who's telling the story, because when you search high fructose corn syrup on the web, one of the first hits, one of the first searches that come up is sweetsurprise.com. Now, they are great proponents for high fructose corn syrup, and guess who backs them? I mean, guess who's putting this out? It's the Corn Refiners Association. And I'm not saying the people involved with the Corn Refiners Association or the organization itself is necessarily bad, but asking the Corn Refiners Association whether corn is good or high fructose corn syrup or anything else made from corn is good is like asking a cyanide salesman whether or not cyanide is good for you. I mean, that's an extreme comparison, but let's look at the facts here and let's look at who's telling the story here. And so on sweetsurprise.com they have various propaganda, I guess you could say, about high fructose corn syrup. They really hit the scene and really hit with advertisements about high fructose corn syrup. And so they've really done a lot of work and a lot of money into trying to turn around this image of high fructose corn syrup. Well, you've already lost me, and so I'm going to do my best to actually reverse what they've tried to tell In my opinion, a lot of lies as well. This is what they say about it. It provides many added benefits, including texture, browning, stability, consistency, baking. You know, they say they use it in breads and things for browning. I can brown bread without high fructose corn syrup. I don't know about you. And as far as the texture goes and things like that, I buy organic bread. I buy, you know, it doesn't have all the preservatives. It's all natural. And of course, it's non-GMO. And the bread lasts. It doesn't go moldy. You know, you buy what you need for the week, and, you know, you don't live the American style where you just buy a bunch of junk and it sits on the shelf for months, and it's supposed to be fresh product and you can sit on the shelf for a month. I don't know about that, but it's just not worth it. I mean, it's just not worth dealing with high fructose corn syrup and the potential dangers of it. To get they say they're look at this, they say improving food quality with high fructose corn syrup. They're improving the quality of it. Now, I think they're improving the way that they can process foods, and they can use processed foods better. I mean, that's the real issue, I believe. And so that's what I wanted to look at. The how, we looked at the how kind of in the video, kind of a comical way and kind of a literal way of making it if you were to make it at home, kind of a broken down process of how they would make it, and also the why they do it. Of course, we looked at the cost. It's cheaper. You know, we can let them off the hook and say, oh, they're just using it because it's cheaper. There's an overabundance of corn. You know, the government subsidizes that particular crop, and they've got all this corn laying around. They might as well turn it into a product. And the problem I have with that is it's when 80+% of the corn in the U.S. is highly genetically modified. I just can't deal with that. I can't trust it. I can't eat it. I'm sorry. And so that's what we're dealing with when talking about that. So ending there, keeping this short. This one went over a little bit with the extra clips and videos, but I want to get into a little bit of the health effects, a little bit of the ways to avoid it next week. And until then, this has been foodoffensive.com, coming at you from the front lines of our food supply. Thank you for joining me.